They say history repeats itself. But in the Middle East, it has turned into a spiral that is tightening like a noose. March 2026. The world froze as three forces converged at the point of no return. Operation Epic Fury. The US and Israel launched a strike that changed everything. Iran responded with fire. When diplomacy burns up in rocket nozzles, it is time for those who are accustomed to speaking the language of force. This is no longer a shadow war. It is the open finale of a great drama. Iran, Israel, Washington. Which of them is ready to burn the world to save face? Today we will dissect the anatomy of this clash. How it all began, Iran and Israel before 1979. To understand where the conflict between Iran, Israel, and the US began, we need to go back to the mid-20th century. Today it seems incredible, but before 1979, relations between Iran and Israel were quite pragmatic. Under Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, Iran was considered an ally of the West and maintained close ties with Israel. Both countries saw Arab nationalism and the USSR as threats, so they cooperated in the fields of intelligence, trade, and energy. At that time, Iran was a strategic partner of the United States. After the 1953 coup, supported by the Central Intelligence Agency and MI6, the Shah's power was consolidated, and Iran finally entered the orbit of American influence. The United States supplied weapons, trained the army, and helped develop the economy. Israel, in turn, saw Iran as an important regional ally outside the Arab world. There was tacit cooperation between the secret services, oil supplies, and technology exchange. Create image and axis was forming in the region, the US-Iran-Israel. But within Iran itself, discontent was growing. People were outraged by the Shah's authoritarian regime, Western influence, and social inequality. It was this discontent that would become the starting point for a future conflict that would overturn the balance of power in the Middle East. The Islamic Revolution of 1979, a turning point. In 1979, the Islamic Revolution took place in Iran. The Shah was overthrown, and Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini came to power. This event was a turning point not only for Iran, but also for global politics. The new government proclaimed Iran an Islamic republic and declared the United States the Great Satan and Israel the Little Satan. Israel was no longer recognized as a state. The ideology of the new regime was based on opposition to Western influence and the export of the Islamic Revolution to the region. In the same year, the U.S. Embassy in Tehran was seized. 52 diplomats were held hostage for 444 days. This crisis became a symbol of the rift between Iran and the US. From that moment on, relations entered a state of constant hostility. Israel found itself in an even more difficult situation. Iran began to actively support forces opposed to Israel, including various Shiite and Palestinian movements. The region began to rapidly polarize. From 1979 onwards, the conflict became not just political, but ideological. It was no longer a struggle for influence, but for fundamentally different models of regional order. Shadow war, Hezbollah, Hamas, and proxy conflicts. After the revolution, Iran began to develop a strategy of so-called indirect warfare. Instead of direct confrontation with Israel or the US, Tehran began to support allied armed groups in the region. A key ally was Hezbollah in Lebanon, created in the 1980s with the support of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Through it, Iran gained the ability to exert pressure on Israel from its northern border. Iran also began to support Palestinian movements, including Hamas. This increased tensions in and around the Gaza Strip. Israel viewed Iran as the main sponsor of its opponents. During this period, the US tightened sanctions against Iran and declared it a state sponsor of terrorism. A long era of sanctions pressure, economic isolation, and covert operations began. In effect, a shadow war took shape: cyber attacks, strikes on weapons depots in Syria, the elimination of military commanders, and strikes on infrastructure targets. There has been no direct declaration of war, but the confrontation continues unabated. This format of conflict continues to this day, gradually growing from a local confrontation into a global geopolitical knot. Iran's nuclear program and the escalation with the US. Iran's nuclear program has become a particular point of tension. In the 2000s, accusations emerged that Tehran was developing nuclear weapons. Iran claimed the program was peaceful, but Israel and the US considered it a threat to Israel's existence and the stability of the region. In 2015, an agreement was signed, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, limiting Iran's nuclear program in exchange for the lifting of sanctions. It was supported by the Barack Obama administration. However, in 2018, President Donald Trump withdrew from the agreement and reinstated tough sanctions. This dramatically escalated the situation. Iran began gradually rolling back restrictions and increasing its uranium enrichment. In 2020, the US assassinated Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. This was one of the most dangerous moments in decades. The world found itself on the brink of direct military conflict. Since then, tensions between the US, Iran, and Israel have remained extremely high. Any new outbreak of violence in the region could become a trigger for a large-scale conflict. Why is this conflict still not over? Today, the conflict between Iran, Israel, and the United States is more than just a dispute between three countries. It is a complex system of alliances, ideologies, and strategic interests. Israel views Iran as an existential threat. Iran considers Israel an illegitimate state and a symbol of Western influence. The United States supports Israel and seeks to limit Tehran's influence. The conflict is escalating across Syria, Lebanon, the Gaza Strip, Iraq, and Yemen. It is intertwined with the religious confrontation between Sunnis and Shiites, the struggle for oil, influence, and regional leadership. The main question is, could this shadow war escalate into an open one? And looking at history, it becomes clear, it all began not with missiles and strikes, but with the political coup of 1979. The regime change in Iran altered the balance of power, and the consequences of that decision are still being felt today. Ancient civilization, Iran is one of the oldest states in the world, the heir to the Great Persian Empire. It is home to 26 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, including the ancient city of Persepolis. Carpet exports, hand-knotted Persian carpets are not just a decorative item, but a national treasure. Some contain up to 1,000 knots per square inch and take years to weave. Unique political system, Iran is an Islamic republic that combines democratic elections and theocracy. The supreme leader, Rabah, has more influence than the president and controls the army and the judiciary. Sugar currency, in Iran, prices are often quoted in tomons, although the official currency is the rial. 1 tomon equals 10 rials. This legacy of the old system confuses tourists. The cult of hospitality, Tarof, is a unique system of etiquette based on polite refusals. When an Iranian offers you a gift or assistance, it's often assumed that you should politely decline, and that they should insistently offer again.